So we're going to quickly cover this lesson 14.7. We've already put forth the challenge to the class to write equations that match given lines that pass through the point 2, 4. So let's see. Anybody have equations that match the lines that I've drawn? Like, did anyone make it proportional and make it go through the origin? James, what did you have then?
The origin, but I made it go from the
What?
Y2.
Which color? You mean X2?
Black.
Oh, black one? Okay, so from there, my equation for the black line would be what?
Y equals X.
Yeah, because my slope is 1, so it's 1x. I don't really need the 1, but if we want to be specific and write it, we can. What's your y-intercept?
2.
So there's one option for an equation. Y equals 1x plus 2. Now, how you check it? Take the point 2, 4 and plug it in. If x is 2, does it make y equal 4? Yes. So then what about my red line? Give me somebody that did make it proportional or can figure out the graph. Pranav?
I need mine proportional.
Okay.
Would it be y equals 1x plus 0?
Not 1x. Your slope changes. Notice my red line and my black line have different slopes than each other.
Oh.
So I agree. It's going to be plus 0 because it's proportional. It has no, well, its y-intercept is at 0. Shahid, what's my slope there? If we think about rise over run. Huh?
3?
Close. Pranav will bounce back.
Is it 1?
No, you already tried that. Olivia?
Oh. Is it 1/2?
Rise over run.
No.
2x.
Why would you have to do plus 0?
We don't need plus 0. I just wrote it to emphasize, yes, the y-intercept is 0. So there is a plus 0 here, but because plus 0 doesn't change anything.
Well, technically, like, everything has a plus 0.
Right. So if there's nothing added on out here, you know it passes through the origin.
Oh.
That's what you know. If you see just a y equals mx and there's no b value, you know it's proportional. It passes through the origin. What about my green line, my horizontal line? To review what slope horizontal lines have. Fine, for now, we'll give you another shot.
0, right?
The slope is 0,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Y equals what 0 times plus
Oh.
4.
Yeah. So really, I can just say y equals 4. Horizontal lines are just expressed with a y equals. Then my vertical line, Nate?
Would it be like x equals
Yep, x equals what?
2?
So there we go. Those are just 4 examples, literally, of infinitely many options. You have infinitely many choices here of lines that could pass through there. Yeah, Zach?
This might be a dumb question. but
No
since
dumb
I was
questions.
sick for 2 days. So, like, with the green one, if it's going across, then you forget about the x because it's not.
We don't forget about the x. The thing is, the x has a coefficient, like a multiplier, of 0. Because our slope is determined by rise over run. To get from this point to this point, what was my rise or my vertical change? Nothing. Over, what was my horizontal change? 2. So I really have 0 over 2x plus 4, but 0 divided by 2 is just 0. 0 times x makes it 0. It's really just,
Simplify.
yep, it's really just y equals 4. Because anywhere on this line, y would equal 4. X is always changing, y always equals 4.
And then for slopes that are going down, it's just a negative.
Yep. So if I drew another line, let's say I'll just use blue just to make it easy. My rise over run, I'm going a perfect 1 and 1, like 1 box down, 1 box over, 1 box down, 1 box over. So that equation would be y equals negative x, because it'd really be negative 1 over 1, plus 6. Does that make sense? Because my y-intercept is 6, my slope is negative 1 over 1. Yeah.
It said to make it proportional.
Does it say to make it proportional?
No, if it said to.
Oh, if it said, we'd have the red equation. Yeah, it'd have to be This equation's my only proportional equation up here. It's the only one that goes through 0. And it's the only option for proportional that uses that point, since it said it has to use that point. Notice there's only 2 parts. So compare the table. Whatever, I'm going to let this play.
On your marks, get set.
They're racing. So compare the bottlenose dolphin's speed given to the table, to the graph, and figure out how we would represent each of these situations. Now think about, is this proportional? Well, if you swim for 0 time, how far have you gone? 0. So these should all be proportional. So try these out. I'm going to pull up the notes because it's a little easier to write into the notes. So if a bottlenose dolphin can travel 8.5 miles in a half hour, we want to say that y, how far they travel, will be something times the number of hours that they do it. Now our slope, we discussed also, is our unit rate. So we really have to think about what is the unit rate for each of these animals. Well, if the dolphin can swim 8.5 miles in a half hour, how many miles can he swim in a whole hour? 17. So for my dolphin, my equation would be y equals 17x. For my sea lion, I like either this point or this point. Why do you think? Nobody knew? Seth?
They're both divisible by 2.
Ooh, not that they're both divisible by 2. They both can multiply.
Up to 100.
Not up to 100. If this is... oh, sorry. I switched these around. Really, I like this point. I was thinking this was miles and that was minutes, when really this is minutes and that's miles.
Oh.
So that point or this point would work too. But I want to discuss speed in...
Miles per minute?
No, not miles per minute.
Miles per hour?
Miles per hour, because over here, we did miles per hour. So here, I want miles traveled in X hours, but X I want to be 1 for my slope. How many miles? 25, because 60 minutes is the 1 hour. And then for my orca, now my time is in hours, so just find your time equal to 1, go up to that point. Ah, that's kind of hard. That point's not perfect. What other point could I use and figure it out then, right?
The 69 or the 2 and 69.
Yeah, where it crosses at 2 hours and 69 miles, so what's half of that? 34.5?
Yeah.
So who's fastest? The orca.
The orca.
So
I'm not feeling it.
this situation deals with discounts again. If something is 15% off, we want to discuss what we are going to pay. So I'm going to pay some percent of the original price. I'm going to pay some percent of the original price. So if store A has everything 15% off, what percent am I going to pay?
70. Wait, no.
8.
No, wait.
If it's
That's
15% off, what percent of the original price do I pay? Try to redeem yourself. 85%. So Y here will be 85% of the original price, which we're just going to make the original price X. Now here we look at what we are paying compared to original. We would just take what we paid compared to the original, or what we paid compared to the original, or what we paid compared to the original, or what we paid compared to the original. I like this point. Why? Baylor?
multiply by
I can double it to look at the original price as $100, which really I can think of as 100%. And then I can just take whatever I paid, that's the percent that I paid. So what's double of 4250? 85. So here we pay 80, that's a weird 85% of the original. So they are both actually running the same sale. Now my last store, I see another $50 original price, so I could use the same technique there. Only if I could figure that out, which is not a nice point. So instead I back down, I find 20. If it was originally 20, I paid 17. What could we do to those values to mental math figure this out? No? Multiply it all by 5. So 17 times 5, break it up. 5 times 10?
Oh my gosh, it's 85.
50. 5 times 7? 35. So we add them together, and we're paying 85% of the original. Which store is offering the best discount? They're all the same.
Maybe they're all bad.
Well,
What if they're all bad?
any discount is good, relatively.
What if it's on, like, every time you buy something?
So 1%.
50% off, like, world domination or something.
Let's skip over this one. I think we've done enough work with comparing the rate given to a table to a graph. So if we look at the next example with the DJs. DJ A, DJ B, and DJ C. Now, I operated under a model when I DJ'd in college as DJ A or DJ C. What do you think when you look at those, that situation is representing by having that B value added on? Because DJ B doesn't have a plus B. He has no y-intercept or no initial value. What do you think this 20x, 40x, and 25x, what do you think those represent? That would be the price per hour, because it's x hours. So if it's multiplied by x, that's the price per hour. So what does the 75 or the 50 tell you?
Is that his, like, I just tried to move my glasses. Is that his, the price that they charge? Is that,
What do you mean the price that they charge?
like, the, and I can't say it.
Yeah, you can.
Initial charge that, or price that they charge?
It's an initial fee to get me. Figure out your sound levels, Miss Bowers. So, if there is an initial charge, that happens no matter how many hours they work. So when we look at which DJ charges the highest hourly rate, which one's most expensive per hour? A's 20, B's 40, C's 25. B is our highest hourly rate. We said that that coefficient, the slope, is the hourly rate. Which equation also shows a proportional relationship? Well, again, B, because there's no y-intercept aside from 0. There's a y-intercept at 0 because all you pay DJ B for is the hourly. He's more expensive per hour, but all you have to pay him for is the hourly. Now, if you had $150 to spend, which DJ could you hire to get the longest amount of time of music? So now, how do I solve a problem like this if I only have $150 to spend? Shahid? Too slow. How do I solve it? I don't want an answer. I want to know, how do I solve this? How do I figure this out?
You would replace y with 150.
Boom. Y is our total dependent on X hours. So I replace Y with 150. So for DJ A, I could say, okay, 150 equals 20X plus 75. Well, the first thing we have to do is remove that 75. So really, I only have $75 to pay for the hourly charges. How many hours would you be able to get? Well, 20 for the first, 40 after the second, 60 after the third. So we get
And then you have to give it to
3, yeah, and actually I'm going to put it in fraction form since it's time. 3 3/4 of an hour, or 3 hours and 45 minutes. You wouldn't really have to give a tip. When you hire professional services like this, tipping is kind of optional.
How much money would you make DJing?
I did it for our fraternity. We did it as a fundraiser. So we would DJ like sorority parties or dances or things like that, and all that money would go back to the fraternity for events that we did and stuff. So we also made T-shirts, like we screen pressed.
How much do you think you can make like just DJing? Like there was like a kid.
So my
who
brother
DJed.
DJs on the side, and he's a pretty good DJ. It does not make enough to be your full-time job. You cannot just DJ.
Like at our party for 6th grade, like to celebrate us moving up
Yeah.
to middle school.
Right.
There was like a kid our age who was DJing.
Yeah, if
and
you
he
learn
said
how to
he
use
makes
the
like
software.
$400 a gig.
Well, also he probably makes more because he's a kid and people will pay him more. But my brother's rate is normally like $75 an hour. But how he does it, and this model would be hard to represent. My brother's model tends to be like the first hour is more expensive, and then every hour after that is like cheaper. So like it'll be $125 for the first hour maybe, and then every hour after that is $50, or every hour after that is $75. Because really, to get there, the gas that he uses and the equipment, like he's risking his equipment when he takes it. He's got to kind of protect himself, but then playing music, it's not that hard.
I
So
mean,
he doesn't charge that much.
DJing is probably fun because it's not like boring. You're just sitting there for like 3 hours.
It's a lot of
just listening to
pressure.
music.
It is fun, but it's a lot of pressure.
DJ Khaled.
All right, moving on. If we replace over here 150 equals 40x, how would I solve that? Or did you have a question, Zach?
Answer and direction.
Okay.
So you just divide it by 40 and then get you like the top
Yeah, so it'd get me 3.
3 and 0.75.
Yeah, again, 3 3/4.
So wouldn't that make A, B, and
Well, C we haven't solved yet, so let's solve C. So if I set up 150 equals 25x plus 50, and I take the 50 away from both sides.
it's just 100, and you divide it by that, and it's 4.
Ah, so who can I get for longer? C. DJ C I could get for an extra 15 minutes. But realize how close all those DJs are. For $150, I could get DJ A or DJ B for the exact same amount of time. Because DJ A had an initial fee, DJ B is more expensive every hour. So when we think about those lines, DJ A, if I make DJ A my blue line, he has an initial fee, but then less of an hourly charge. DJ B has no initial fee, but a more expensive hourly charge. This point where they cross, that would be the 3 3/4 of an hour at $150. That intersection is where they are the exact same price for the exact same amount of time. Because then after that, DJ B would be more expensive. Every hour after that would be more for DJ B than DJ A. So if you decide, oh, I want to hire him for longer, DJ A would be your better deal. But then we'd have to throw DJ C in the mix and compare that with A. Questions, comments, concerns? Ready to just work on your homework?
Yeah.
All right, let's dive in. Cart in the hallway is mine for today.